Well, there is one clear winner. It is Ivan Duque from the Democratic Centre Party. As expected, he won away with the majority of votes by 54% to Gustavo Petro, who was representing the left, on 41%. That's about 10 million votes as opposed to Gustavo Petro's 7 million. So a clear victor in this contest, and something that all the opinion polls were clearly indicating that the majority of Colombians would go out and support Duque. Now, at 41, he will become the country's youngest ever president. He was handpicked by former President Alvaro Uribe. He is the heir to the Uribe throne. So he's likely to hit the ground running when he takes office in August, and he'll have a tough task ahead of him to get Colombia's economy back on track and, of course, deal with the fallout of the peace process, which is one of the main topics that was raised during this very contentious debate that we've had here in Colombia over the past 3 months.
And for those who aren't immersed in Colombia's election campaign, just talk us through what have been the main issues of this election campaign.
The main one has been the peace process, the future of the peace process. Duque and the Democratic Centre Party under Uribe, they want to modify parts of that agreement that were signed in 2016 with the former FARC rebels. They want greater justice for the victims, and they feel that the former FARC rebels have got off too leniently and haven't been punished enough for the atrocities that were carried out over 5 decades. On the other side, you had Gustavo Petro, who was from the left, a former rebel himself from the M19, and he was advocating a more conscientious approach to dealing with the FARC. He felt that they should be reintegrated more into society and into politics, and advocated leaving the peace process, the peace deal as it is. Now, he has lost, and lost by quite a margin, but his supporters that we've seen some pictures emerging here have been chanting throughout the day, "We have not lost." And this is probably in reference to the inroads that they've made. This was the first ever leftist candidate that challenged the presidency, and he really did make some inroads into raising social issues that were previously ignored under other campaigns that were dominated by talk of war. So it's been a really interesting campaign. The economy has also been a huge topic, as has been corruption.
It shouldn't come down to personalities, but of course all politics does, and the two men in the running for the top job couldn't be more different, could they?
No, they couldn't. Gustavo Petro is a former rebel, an intellectual, the country's first ever leftist candidate, not part of the establishment. He said he's anti-establishment, and very much a person who wants to create equality for all. Labelled a socialist, but he would call himself a progressive. On the other hand, you've got Ivan Duque, the youngest ever candidate that will become president in Colombia. He's a relative unknown. He spent 9 years in the United States working for the United Nations and the Inter-American Development Bank. He's fluent in English and really has got very little experience, though, in terms of running any major office in Colombian politics. So he is sort of an unknown quantity, untested, and critics will say, have said throughout this campaign, because of his inexperience and because he was handpicked by the ex-president, he is going to be the so-called puppet president, the president that will be dominated by Alvaro Uribe, this very controversial, strong-willed president that held office for 2 terms back in the 2000s. So he's really an unknown quantity, but the voters have decided to go with what they know best and pick a conservative centre president like they have in the past.